Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of How You Livin'. I'm Dr. Sam.
I'm Dr. G. Very, very cool show we have today. Special guest. You know, we both talk about mold all the time and how it affects us. Well, we have the expert in this area coming onto this studio to talk about mold. And on top of that, he's going to inspect the space.
I am so excited because we've both had experiences with mold and we see how it affects the body. We work with our patients. So we're excited to bring this knowledge.
Want to talk about the weekend?
Yeah. How did you live?
How did I live? Well, I'm almost going to not live in a place because I got to leave my lease. Living in Topanga in the mountains, for those of you who don't know, but now I'm coming back to society, coming back to Venice, coming back to community, right? You know,
happy to
be back. Yeah, you know what's crazy? When I went to a therapist in 2015, I told her I kept having this vision that I went to live in a mountain for a year and I came back a different man. And I can't believe that really happened.
I know.
And now I'm coming back. Am I not coming back a different man?
You are coming back. I mean, the transformation you've been through in the past year. I remember when you first moved into the Topanga place, all the times we meditated in the little garden you have with the water flowing. I mean,
very powerful.
Remember those? Wow.
Yeah, different version. But anyway.
Different version of you.
But that's neither here nor there. We're moving, but I'm coming back here. And you actually joined me in some of my house hunting.
Yeah.
And some things that came to the surface was, first of all, how sensitive we are to toxins.
Yes. Is it because, do you think we don't work with toxins and like now we're so sensitive to picking it up, it affects us like this and we're like, we gotta bounce.
Yeah. I do believe that the less you are exposed to toxins, the more sensitive your body is because you're not actively metabolizing those toxins. So anyway, we walk into a place as you join me and another friend. And the minute we walk in, it smells like, oh my God, like whatever they clean those floors in was coming up, off-gassing right into our nose. You got a headache.
I was like,
I felt all dizzy.
Yeah.
Right. And the whole point of this is really be very weary of the homes you're going into and what you're putting in your home. Now, it's interesting because we have a mold guy coming on, Brian. Mold is a big thing that I look for when moving into a new place. We're going to learn about more later about what to look for. But for me and you, we know that we're affected acutely by mold.
Yep.
Right? So I'll look for a place. I'll come into my car after we're done and I'll be like, okay, do I feel different? Do I feel more dizzy? Do I feel a little bit buzzed cognitively, brain foggy? And then I know that there was mold in the place. Unfortunately, you can't find all types of mold, but definitely it's some things we have to look for when we buy a house or look for an apartment.
Exactly. What about that other place we went to where she had this candle burning and we're both like, okay, the building's brand new. We didn't really sense mold or anything else, but the candle was so toxic that we both got out and we're like, oh my God, love this space. But what was she trying to hide with the candle?
Yeah.
And also looking at that, the chemicals other than mold, other things we're using in our homes that are affecting us on a daily basis.
Yeah. So for me, something really important that I look for in a home is airflow.
Yeah.
Regardless if there is chemicals and they're washing the floor or the walls or the windows, at least we're getting to airflow. We're getting sun, right? It's very difficult the mold loves dark, moist places. So really getting some sun in and getting that airflow. So two important things I look for in a place. And then I do the sniff test. You know, even though we have the masks, the realtor will find me with my mask down and sniffing around the room. She did catch me. And I'm going to put it on really quickly. But yeah, just for all of you looking out there, I know that that's my weekend and you spent some of the weekend with me. So it's our weekend for this segment here.
That was our fun weekend. It's so much fun to inspect.
Very fun to inspect.
All right, Christian, the meme you sent me this morning was so funny. It was actually like PTSD from like all the time someone's done this to me. Yeah,
you know what makes a good meme is the relatability.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And how many times, and first of all, the meme is this. It's this really funny picture of a guy looking over his shoulder, really angry. And
are there tears coming down?
No, well, his eyes are a little bit red and watery, like it's just already depressed. And it says, when you lose something and someone says, well, where's the last place you had it? And it's so true because if I knew where it was, if I knew the last place I had it, I wouldn't think I have it in my hand right now.
I know.
But how many people are like, as you're looking?
So relatable and so annoying.
I've done it too. You know, someone's like looking under the couch and I have my hands in my pocket. I'm like, well, where'd you have it last?
Yeah.
And it's just really funny. I know you were laughing. What about you? Funny. I know you had a really good one to talk about.
Oh my God. One of our friends sent this to me last night. It's how do foods get their name? And I'm going to let you guys watch this meme. It's so funny. The zucchini.
Yeah.
2 zucchinis going to the zoo.
Yeah.
Wearing bikinis.
Wearing bikinis. But
it's a really dumb one. Not relatable. It's just funny.
Yeah. But like, that's the whole point. Like the meme is like a masterful meme is relatability, and or you could just laugh at these voices or the acting or just, like the reactions that we see. Yeah. Look, we're never going to be able to, there's going to be never ending bank of memes. There's so many out there.
All we're gonna
and funny videos. But look, in a world with a lot of pressure and a lot of crap that's going on, you always got memes.
And you always got laughter.
And you always got laughter, exactly.
All right, Christian, let's get into some interesting news. We're always advocating and supporting brands and talking about how brands should be more transparent, get rid of their toxic ingredients, but no one's ever talking about the retailers that are actually carrying toxic brands. So tell me about this research paper or this article that came out.
All right, so with that said, CNN came out with an article that basically was a collaborative effort from a few nonprofits, Toxic Free Future, We Act on Environmental Justice, and Defend Our Health, all put together basically an expose, for lack of better terms, that we learn about what retailers are out there are the most toxic ones. Sam, which one are the most toxic retailers that we find?
I mean, I'm so shocked, but Nordstrom, Subway, Starbucks, Ace Hardware Store, 7-Eleven, Sally's Beauty.
Publix.
Yeah.
Publix was up there. So these are really very, very popular ones that most towns across America have there. Yeah. And what we're seeing is that these retailers should be just as responsible for putting out toxic products for us. And it's pretty wild. I mean, these are all like companies that we won't expect to be really high standard, but it just goes to show that these retailers are just not meeting us at our healthiest selves.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
What I do love is that they did talk about some retailers that actually improved their toxic score too, right? What were those ones?
That's how it should be, actually. Yeah. So what we see is in last year's report, what they give these companies is letter grades, these retailers. And Ulta Beauty went from a C last year to an A. So that's great. Ulta Beauty. I haven't seen one personally, but I know they exist. Sephora, super popular. Every single mall had a big jump into an A. So they're making some big moves, which is really encouraging for me because I know how many women and men may get their products from there.
Yeah, personal care
products, makeup.
Every single day.
So they're making some strides. Also, great news, and surprisingly, Target and Rite Aid have also committed to screening more of their beauty products for us. Really amazing stuff. And Whole Foods also has taken action on screening for their products of concern. So no one is innocent. We can see even someone like Whole Foods has some products of concern, and that's a really high standard, but really good to hear that these companies are committing themselves to doing better by us. And it's how it should be.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Today's special guest, Brian Karr, is an expert mold finder and the founder of the company We Inspect, where they go into your house and look for mold. Today, we're going to learn about what is mold, where is it found, and how it's affecting our overall health. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm pumped. We've been wanting to get you here for a little bit, and it's going to be really good to learn about this. I know Sam was asking how you really got into it, but let's just,
Yeah. I always love to hear the story behind how did you get started with this? I love what you guys are doing because we do this with our patients. We always look for underlying causes of health issues, and mold is a really big one. So really excited to hear about your story and how you got into it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I didn't go to college to find mold. That's not a thing. Like a lot of people, I feel like everyone has their story. They were impacted by it by some way, and it kind of opened their eyes to what was going on. So for me, I was living in an apartment in West Hollywood. All the buildings are old over there. The ceiling above me had a pipe leak from the bathroom up there, flooded down into my bedroom, caused a big problem. What do? I call the landlord right away, get somebody out here, fix this right away, everything's leaking. What else do you do? That's what you think to do, right? And so they do what landlords do. They send someone out, the plumber guy comes out, they cut a hole open, they fix the pipe, they put it back together. They don't even paint it. They just put it back together. And okay, cool, everything's good. It's all dry, no problems. And what do I know, right? I don't know anything, right? So I'm like, okay, cool, that's great, And so I'm spending time in my room. A week goes by, I start noticing, I'm normally pretty sharp, and I start noticing like I'm a little slower, like when I'm thinking about stuff, different things. And so I kind of like start questioning my girlfriend, who's now my wife, my girlfriend at the time. Her dad is kind of like the godfather of mold finders, if you will. And she's like, hey, you should talk to my dad. He works with people, they're sick, chronic illnesses. These are things that kind of he describes, like what you're feeling. I'm like, okay. And I wasn't sold yet, like you're not sold. And so I just kind of like let it go, and I didn't really do anything. And then I wake up one morning, I go in the bathroom, like washing my face, and I look, and it looks like peeling, flaking rashiness on my face, which still flares up sometimes now, even like years later. And then I just got super freaked out, right? So then I go down the mold rabbit hole that you go down, right? And I'm looking at all these pictures, just like mold on the walls, on the internet and stuff. I'm like, it doesn't look like that here. Like, I don't know, man. And then so she basically like forces me to talk to her dad, and like sets it, and she gets me on the phone with him, and he's like, all right, what's going on? And I tell him what happened. I had this big flood, things, whatever. He's like, there's a mold problem in that house. I need to come over there. What are you doing tomorrow? I'm going to come over there. I'm going to look at everything. I'm going to figure it out. He comes over. He spends 2 hours in an 800 square foot apartment, and he finds 8 different things of hidden areas of mold issue in the house. Some of it was visible, most of it was not, right?
And it wasn't even linked to that leak, right? That was
some
just
of it
one
was.
Area. Oh, okay.
Some of it wasn't, right? And so at first I'm like, why are you even looking in the kitchen? What are you going in the bathroom for? Like, this isn't where the problem was. In the meantime, the landlord sent their own mold inspector over because I was complaining about it. And what does that guy do? He comes in, he's in my place for like 15 minutes. He takes an air sample in the middle of my room. He looks up at the ceiling. He's like, oh, it's all dry. Mold can't grow if there's no water. You're fine, but we'll take an air sample because you're, kind of being annoying. Like, that's basically the vibe that I was getting. Yeah. Turns out Mark found all of those 8 areas actually ended up being problems, hidden mold areas throughout the whole place, specifically in the room as well, where a lot of the damage happened. The test that comes back from the other guy that he took in the middle of the room, nothing, right? Just false negative.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in this like battle with the landlord. It's like, Mark asked me afterwards, he says, he's like, well, what's your goal? What do you want to do? I'm like, what do you mean, what's my goal? What do you mean? And he's like, I mean, do you want to stay here? Do you want to leave? Do you want to, like, what do you want to happen? Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to stay here. Look what they're doing right now. Like, I don't want to, like, they're going to, they're going to half-ass it. Like, I don't want to do that. He's like, cool, get me on the phone with your landlord. I'm going to get you out of your lease. And man, just like that, out of the lease, got moving expenses paid for, got all that stuff done. And so that was kind of that was how I saw what happened. And I saw, it's like, on one end, you got kind of the standard guy that comes in and they don't spend any time and they do this testing that honestly is being done incorrectly. And so it's giving you false negatives. It's giving people a false sense of security. And then they don't know that there's a problem, right? Then you got Mark come in, he's spending, hours, he's finding all this stuff. He's like helping me figure this out. I'm like, this is what I need to be doing. I need to be helping people and doing stuff like this. And like on the spot, like right after, it was like, hey, I want to work with you. And he looked at me. Again, I just started dating his daughter. It's like I'm getting into bed with my daughter's dad, and I didn't, and so anyways, I work with him. He basically teaches me all the things, and that's kind of how it happened.
Amazing.
I love that. So your own healing journey through that and how it impacted your own health and lifestyle. Really inspired you to do it for others.
Yeah, and you know what? In the grand scheme of things, like what I'm feeling is not even close to like what a lot of other people are feeling, right?
And a lot of people do get sick, and I've been telling people for a long time, if we can't find what the disease is or the condition or the root cause, and it's still there and we're taking all these tests, it's likely in your home. It's likely environmental, and mold is a major, major role. One statistic when I was researching is finding that almost like 50% of homes in America have mold.
It's more than that.
More than that. I mean, you're the expert. You're seeing it. That's just like some rough research.
Yeah.
And then a quarter of us can't even break down these mycotoxins, so we're getting super sick. This is why we say family of 4, mom, dad, sister, and brother. The brother may be super sick, and we don't know why.
A lot of times we think of the toxic mold piece. The reality is, from the health perspective, and obviously, like you could talk to this, but like there's the toxic reaction that someone has, and then there's the allergic reaction that someone has. But when most people think allergy, they just think like itchy nose, like watery eyes. But mast cells in your body create histamine. That's your allergic reactions. Mast cells surround your brain. They surround your organs. You could have allergic reactions in your body that are not a stuffy nose that are causing brain issues, that are causing other issues. It's just such a wide, spread kind of multi-system, multi-symptom type of thing that can happen in your body. And it's hard to pinpoint if you don't really know where it's coming from.
And it's incredible because Sam, you remember the place that I lived in and you saw my health go down over the year. Like cognitively, I was just, couldn't even remember words, simple words like cup, water, almond. I'm like, I'm jumping on, I'm like, almond. And it's very scary. Like there was a point where I go, well, this must be what dementia feels like. Because you're not up to your highest level. Yeah. So do you find that like a lot of your patients or a lot of your clients are suffering with mental issues, cognitive mood issues?
Brain fog is a big thing. So memory, foggy, there's a lot of different descriptions. That's a big, big thing. There's a lot of other symptoms too. And then if you're tying in other health conditions into it, if you have Lyme disease, you have autoimmune diseases, you have something else, and it just kind of exacerbates the whole problem. Yeah. But when you think about, have you seen kind of the idea of inhalational Alzheimer's? Have you seen any of that?
Yeah.
So the idea is that your direct pathway when you're breathing is going straight towards your brain. If you're breathing in mycotoxins, which are neurotoxins, they're fat soluble. Your whole brain is like 60% fat. So like what's happening is that if you're breathing that stuff in, it can basically be embedding and kind of soaking into the brain through that area. I saw a study that was done where they put people that were diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they put them all on antifungals. And then half of them got better. They didn't actually have Alzheimer's.
Wow, it was just the symptoms.
It was
of brain
the symptoms of
fog
Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you can't just do a full brain scan and go Alzheimer's.
Right.
A lot of it is clinical, how we're doing on these different test scores and how you're presenting clinically. Yeah. So that's a thing. I can imagine that. These antifungals, there's an improvement, and they go, what the heck? You might have never had Alzheimer's.
There was a similar study on cancer. They did the same thing. Half the people started showing that they didn't actually have cancer. They had symptoms that were showing cancer-like symptoms. They were putting these people on chemo. They didn't even need it.
Wow.
They took it away, put them on antifungals, and a portion of them started getting better.
I'm telling you, mold is
a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
Huge problem.
So we're really excited to have you here because we're actually going to look at the Swell house. We're going to look.
Yes.
We're going to look. What do we look for?
Yep.
Where does mold grow? You're going to bring out some of your fancy stuff.
Yeah, and the most common places to look because we're going to go inspect everyone.
We're going to inspect everyone. So we're really excited to get it started. So
awesome.
Are you ready to just give us the show now?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Let's get started.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. We got Brian here, and we're going through the Swell house, and we're going to look for the places where mold usually grows. And we're going to get some of the expertise as to what to look for, and let's see if we find anything.
Yeah, so one of the most common places you're going to find mold in any house is really around plumbing, right? So mold needs water to grow. A lot of us think like sinks leak, so whatever, it's not a problem, right? It's a normal thing. It doesn't mean that. It actually means we need to be more careful and more cognizant of what's happening in those areas. So sinks are such a common spot. We're going to look in this kitchen sink here and look for a couple things as we're in here and see what we find. So
I'm the light guy over here, so we're going to really illuminate this.
all right, so here's the first thing. First off, we should be pulling everything out of our sinks at least once a month.
Once a month?
Because what happens is the more stuff you get down here, the less you can see. Like if you look down here, you can't see anything, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it kind of hides stuff. So the first thing that you do is if you're pulling stuff out from under your sink at least once a month, you're at least getting eyes on what's going on and you can see things maybe before it starts to get worse, right? Okay. So first I'm gonna pull some stuff out and then let's see what's going on down here. So, so what I want to get to show you, so see all this water staining coming down this wall?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a leak here that's getting behind this wall, right? Now, this may not be wet right now. I bet you if I put the moisture meter on it, I bet you it'll be dry. I haven't done this yet, so we're just going to see. This is dry, okay? If it was wet, it would peak like that.
Uh-huh.
And so it's dry. And we're like, oh, it's dry. It's not a problem. There's nothing going on here.
Right.
The thing is, if mold grew back here, we know water was here. If mold grew, it doesn't just go away when the water goes away. It stays there. Mm-hmm. And so what would happen here is that you could end up having a hidden mold problem behind this wall that penetrates out through the cabinetry, throughout the upper areas and can impact the space, right? So the way that we would test this, if we were going to do this, we would do what's called a cavity sample. You put a little hole right here where the water damage is, it's like the size of, this is what I use. I literally went to Home Depot, I'll try to get it out of here, and I found like this little tool, it's like stuck in my thing.
And you've got a whole toolkit over here with all the goodies.
Oh my goodness.
Flashlights, cavity
Moisture
sample,
meter.
moisture meters.
There we go.
There you
So
go.
this guy, all you do is I use this guy, I put a little hole in the wall, and then we stick a tube through the hole, connect that to an air sampling pump. This is how air samples can be really effective. The closer you are to the source, the more effective the air sample is. The further away that you get from it, it's like exponentially less accurate.
I see.
So you have to be as close as you can to where you think it is. But what the strength of it is there's no visible mold growth on this wall, but there could be mold back behind it. And so the strength of using an air test in that way is it shows us what's hiding behind places and you can't get like a physical swab or something.
So didn't you say the mold needs water to grow though?
It did. So here was the water.
Okay, it did, but what if the water dried out? Then doesn't the mold still need some sort of moisture, or is it getting moisture?
So the thing is, it doesn't have to be alive right now, right? It could have grown. Remember we talked about like the flowers earlier?
Yeah.
So what happens is when the colony is if this is your colony and the water is there, it's really sturdy. It's not going anywhere, right? When it dries out, it becomes really, really brittle. And so what happens is that anytime there's a change in air pressure or air current, so let's say you shut this cabinet door, you just bumped all of this. You created a disturbance, breaks it apart.
I see.
And so the mold isn't actually alive and growing at the moment, but the fragments that break off of it will still break off of it. And eventually that stuff gets into the space, and those fragments are so small that they bypass our nose and our throat in terms of our natural filtering system.
Gotcha.
And that's how it gets into our lungs.
All right.
So this is a common thing that you can see under sinks.
So under the sink, we have it. Where else are we going to need to look now?
So the next thing we're going to do is go look at the heating and air conditioning system and just make sure that all that stuff is looking good.
Cool.
And hopefully there's no problems there.
All right, Brian, now that we have the sink covered, where else are we gonna look?
Yeah, the next place I always want to look is the heating air conditioning systems. They're the lungs of your house. You got to make sure that they're in good shape. You don't want to be breathing stuff in just because you're trying to be, heated or cooled. So let's go check yours out and see what's going on there.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right. So this is your return vent, okay? So what this means is that the airflow is getting pulled into here, which means that your air conditioning unit is probably right here, which it is. So we'll open that up in a second.
Yeah.
So I always like to look inside the return vents. Sometimes you see water damage in there. Sometimes you see like loose drywall debris and different things that could get pulled into your air conditioning system. It's not just mold, it could be other things too. So I always like to look in here. So let's pop this open real quick and just see what it looks like, and then we'll get into the actual unit itself.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do filters actually protect us if there's mold in there? You know how we're supposed to change air conditioning filters all the time? Is that protective or no?
Not if it's in here.
Okay.
So if you think about the airflow, it's coming, it hits a filter. If the mold source is actually past the filter, then it's not going to do anything.
And it's
Okay.
recirculating then?
And then it'll get pushed and
I see.
recirculated everywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm going to open this real quick as the first step.
Do you want me to hold the light from this angle?
All right, so here's your filter. We'll pull this out. Super easy. Anybody can open this up, right? Took 2 seconds. So you look in here. Look at all, this is a whole lot of water damage and staining down
Wow.
here. So to me, this means that what I'm thinking is happening is that this air conditioning unit has probably leaked. And if it's leaked, you're seeing the water damage down here. There could be a mold issue ingrained in the insulation down here itself, which means when the air conditioning unit turns on, it would pull that up because there's no more filters.
Yeah.
But if it leaked here, that means there's probably water damage and something else happening inside where the actual air conditioning unit lives. So what we do is that we try to follow the path of moisture. So if you see like a little clue or a little sign that there's something there, then you keep going and you keep trying to figure out like where did it go? What other room might have it impacted? It's not always just here. It could be an adjacent space somewhere nearby. So we see this doesn't really look good. This looks like it goes straight up into an air conditioning unit. So we're gonna open this up and look in the air conditioning unit next.
Okay.
We'll see what's there. Okay. All right, so this is the door. So the unit's gonna be in here if you want to swing around so we can get a good look at what's going on. Okay, so a lot of condos, apartments, smaller places, they have their unit in a closet inside. This is actually where I would prefer a unit to live, ideally, is inside the house in a conditioned space. That way you're not exposing it to a lot of other stuff. But again, we saw water damage down there, right? So the first thing I'm doing when I look in here is I want to see, is there water staining? Is there damage? Is there buckling or bubbling or something that looks like there's been a water issue? All you need is a flashlight for this, guys. I literally haven't taken out a fancy tool yet, right? So as I look through here, I'm seeing on the side and in the back, lots of dark black spotting. There's mold growing inside of this unit. Wow. And then if we look on the other side, it's even worse over here. If you can see all of that in there, right? And say, okay, so this is your air conditioning unit. So now we think about what's happening here. When this turns on, it creates a really, really heavy suction. Think like a massive industrial vacuum cleaner is basically happening here, because it's pulling all the air from your house into the system, right? If you have mold and water damage that's surrounding this unit, I want you to look at how easy it is to get into this thing. My fingers can pull this open. This is not airtight sealed, okay? Which means if you have mold in here and this unit creates a heavy suction, whatever's surrounding it, there are going to be pieces of it that just get in from the sides, just like that. And then all I have to do is turn two little things and the whole thing just opens up. So this isn't really like a super airtight sealed system, which means whatever's happening around here, it's going to get into here, right? But then we look inside here. So let's just say we didn't believe that. Let's say, well, that's just all out there. It's not going to be in here, right? So then we get inside of it. And you can see kind of in the back over here, you see the mold growing in the system on the platform here. Yeah. Which means when this fan turns on, you start pulling it straight into the system. So this is actually a source mold issue in this HVAC system. You know, if it was me, I would stop running this right now, right? Even before we test it.
Wow, I'm shocked that there was, I mean, this is a brand new building.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty shocked that there's mold here, and especially near the air conditioner. That's a place I would never think. I always think bathroom. I thought about under the sink, but the fact that it's so close to the air conditioner or in there, like you said.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting that your air conditioning system, it is a water source. So we were talking before, like sinks, showers, toilets. Your air conditioning system, it creates moisture as part of the heating and cooling process. So if it's not draining properly, if there's a malfunction or something in there, then it turns into like a place where a leak happens, and then you see what happened in there.
And it just goes to show, you can have a brand new place and there can already be mold growing. It doesn't have to be an old place.
100%.
Yeah, so that now we see the value that we have to look where there's mold in our house, if there's mold, and how to remediate that, because it could be making us sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so amazing stuff. Thank you for coming on the show, man, showing us, dropping those bombs, and really, like, you know, opening our eyes to it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, anything we can do to help.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that was great.
All right.
Wow. What a great interview we had with Brian. And are you surprised about the mold we found?
Yes, in that it's a new place.
Yeah.
But no, in that mold can be anywhere.
I'm so shocked by it because, first of all, it's a brand new house, right? And I mean, I'm shocked because I've never done a mold inspection. I know you've gone through it for your own home. So it was so shocking to me that he went and looked in the AC unit. And I was like, what are you doing?
And one of my favorite parts was when he described that air unit as the lungs of the house.
Yeah.
Important, we need to think about our home as a living ecological system, an environment. Yeah. And if we start thinking about it more like that, then we can go, how do we optimize the lungs of the house, right? How do we optimize the airflow? So Brian coming into the house, showing us those ins and outs, that was really amazing stuff. So amazing. And thank you, everyone, for reading, reviewing, subscribing, and joining our show. Please text this number for a chance to be called by Dr. Sam and I to win a very special gift from us at Swell Score. Thank you for joining the show.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll see you next week.